I had been driving long-haul trucks for more than 20 years. Through storms, mountain passes, endless nights on the interstate, I'd seen just about everything. But what happened on a stretch of I-40 in Arkansas, that was the closest I've ever come to not making it home. It was just past 2 in the morning. The highway stretched out ahead of me, dark and empty. The asphalt glowing under the reach of my headlights. My Freightliner hummed steady beneath me, the vibration traveling up through the steering wheel and into my arms. On nights like that, you feel the solitude more than ever. The CB radio was on, but the channel was dead quiet. No chatter, no warnings, just the faint static filling the silence. My plan was simple. Make it to the next truck stop, grab a cup of coffee, and get a few hours of rest. The kind of routine decision every trucker makes 100 times a week. Then, I saw the green reflective sign flash in the darkness. Way station, next right. Seconds later, the electronic board lit up. Open, all trucks must enter. That gave me pause. At that hour, most way stations are shut down. Still, the rules are the rules. You don't skip a scale when the board says open. I flipped on my blinker and eased into the ramp. The first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. The lot sat empty, not another rig in sight. The building was lit, but the fluorescence flickered unevenly, buzzing in the cold air. That's when a white SUV rolled out from behind the office. It had light bars on the roof, but no numbers, no clear markings. And when the man stepped out, dressed in a DOT uniform with a badge clipped to his chest, I knew something was off. The badge looked smudged, like a photocopy behind plastic. The uniform didn't quite fit right. Still, he walked with authority. And when he reached my cab, he didn't ask for my logbook. He didn't ask for registration. He looked straight at me and said, "I need you to open the trailer." Right now, his tone wasn't a request. It was an order. I hesitated for just a second, long enough for him to tilt his head like he was daring me to refuse. My gut was screaming that something wasn't right, but refusing a DOT officer, real or not, can turn ugly fast. So I climbed down from the cab, the cold night air hitting my face. Gravel crunched under my boots as I walked toward the trailer doors. The lot felt wrong. The buzzing lights above threw shadows across the empty pavement, stretching long and sharp. And the silence. It wasn't the kind of quiet you get at 2 a.m. on the interstate. It was heavier, like the air itself was waiting. I unlatched the first lock on the trailer, my hands stiff from the cold. That's when I noticed movement. 2 figures stepped out from behind the scale house. They weren't wearing uniforms. They weren't even trying to. One of them had a pistol in his hand, the metal catching the glow of the overhead lights. The other carried something longer, maybe a shotgun, held low against his leg. They walked with purpose. Not toward the supposed officer, toward me. The man in the uniform didn't move, didn't reach for a weapon, didn't say a word. He just stood there, watching, like he was in on it. I froze, my breath sharp in my chest. The first guy with the pistol closed the distance fast, barking something I couldn't even process. Then the second one climbed straight onto my truck, boots slamming against the step rail, one hand yanking on the passenger door handle. The whole rig rocked under his weight. The door lock rattled hard as he pulled, and still, the officer just stood there, watching. My pulse was hammering so loud I could barely hear the words coming out of their mouths. The man on the step yanked at the handle again, his fist pounding the glass. The other raised his pistol, waving it toward me as if daring me to make the wrong move. I glanced back at the so-called officer. His face was unreadable, eyes fixed on me like this was just another inspection. No attempt to intervene. No radio. Nothing. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't an inspection. This was a setup. Adrenaline took over. I spun back toward the cab, boots slipping against the gravel as I climbed. The guy on the step cursed, his hand clawing at the door frame as I shoved past him. I slammed myself into the driver's seat, heart racing. Keys were already in the ignition. My hand shook as I twisted them, and the engine roared to life, the sound deafening in the stillness of the lot. The man on the step lost his grip as I slammed the truck into gear. The other shouted, his pistol flashing under the floodlights. I don't know if he fired or not. All I heard was the thunder of my engine and the pounding in my chest. I floored it. The Freightliner lurched forward, tires squealing across the pavement. The so-called officer didn't move as I barreled past him, just turned his head slowly, watching me tear out of the way station like it was all part of the plan. In the mirror, I caught a glimpse of them. The two men running after me, one waving his arms, the other lifting his weapon. But then the darkness swallowed them, and I was alone again on the interstate, engine screaming, headlights cutting a path through the night. I didn't stop until I reached the next truck stop, miles down the road. When I asked around about the way station, other drivers swore it had been closed for weeks. No one had seen it open. No one had seen a DOT unit working that shift. And to this day, I still don't know who they were, or how close I came to never leaving that lot alive. Not every sign on the highway means safety. I'd been on the road for 12 straight hours. My back ached, my eyes burned, and the only thing on my mind was a bed. I didn't care if it was a luxury suite or a hole in the wall. I just needed a place to sleep. That's when I spotted the flickering neon sign off the old Route 66. Motel. Half the letters were burned out, the red glow humming faintly against the night sky. The parking lot was empty. Not a single car, not a single rig. Just cracked pavement under yellow floodlights, buzzing with moths. Inside, the lobby smelled of dust and old carpet. The man at the counter barely looked up from the small TV on his desk. Without a word, he slid a key across the counter. The tag was plastic, scratched, with a number printed in faded black. I signed the register out of habit, though he didn't even check my ID. It felt strange, impersonal, but I was too tired to argue. The hallway was long, lined with doors on either side. The carpet was worn down, patterned in stains. Every step echoed faintly, the air heavy with the scent of mildew and something metallic underneath. I passed one room with the door slightly ajar. Inside, I caught a glimpse of an open suitcase on the bed, clothes scattered as if someone had just stepped out for a smoke. But there was no one there. At the next door, a phone charger blinked green beside a neatly made bed. No sound, no voices. Room after room. Signs of life, but not a single person in sight. By the time I reached my own room, the silence pressed in thick and heavy. I locked the door behind me and tossed my duffel onto the bed. It felt like stepping into a time capsule. Faded wallpaper, air conditioner rattling in the window, a smell like cigarettes ground into the curtains. I told myself it was nothing, just an old motel, just my exhaustion making me paranoid. But deep down, I already knew something was off. I tried to settle in, kicked off my boots, scribbled my mileage into the logbook, stacked the fuel receipts on the nightstand. The same routine I'd done 1,000 times before. The TV buzzed with static, never finding a channel. But the quiet, it wasn't normal. Not for a motel. No muffled voices through the walls. No pipes rattling. Not even the sound of a shower running in another room. And yet, I'd seen the signs. Open luggage. Chargers plugged in. Clothes folded neatly on chairs. The place looked lived in, but it felt abandoned. I pulled the curtains back just enough to peek outside. The parking lot was still empty. No cars, no trucks. Nothing but my rig under the dim orange glow of the lamppost. That's when I heard it. The faint scrape of a shoe against carpet. A soft click as a door latch released. I held my breath, listening. The sound moved slowly down the hall. A door testing open, then another, and another. I crept toward the peephole. Through the fisheye glass, I saw a shadow slide across the hallway wall. Someone was out there, moving door to door, checking each one. The sound grew closer, the metallic twist of a knob, a door creaking on its hinges, and then silence, until my own doorknob rattled. The metal shook under someone's hand, turning slowly, carefully. The lock held, but I could see the handle shift, hear the faint grind of the mechanism straining against pressure. Whoever it was, they weren't knocking. They weren't asking. They were trying. My chest tightened as the knob twisted again. This time harder. Deliberate. I lunged for the desk chair and wedged it under the handle, then dragged the dresser across the floor, every scrape echoing like thunder in the silence. The lock was holding, but I wasn't taking chances. The footsteps outside moved on. One door, two doors. Each handle rattled. Each room tested. I stood frozen in the dark, the glow of the alarm clock painting red numbers across the wall. 2:47 a.m. The steps came back, slow, measured, returning down the hallway. When they stopped again, it was right outside my door. The air in the room felt thin, my breath shallow. The knob shook violently now, metal clanging against the chair wedged beneath it. For a moment, I thought it would snap clean off. And then, silence. No footsteps retreating. No doors opening. Just nothing. I waited. Minutes stretched long, my ears straining for any sign of movement. But the hallway stayed quiet, like it had swallowed whoever was out there. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. At first light, I loaded my things, shoved the dresser aside, and left that room without looking back. In the lobby, the desk was empty. The TV still hissed static. The register I'd signed the night before was gone. When I stepped outside, the parking lot was as empty as it had been when I arrived. Only my truck, waiting under the pale morning sky. To this day, I don't know who was walking that hall, or what would have happened if I hadn't locked the door. Some doors should never be opened. You learn quick out here. Never pick up strangers. But that night in New Mexico, the stranger already knew me. It was close to midnight when I pulled into a lonely truck stop off I-40. The desert air was cold, dry, carrying the smell of dust and diesel. The place was barely lit, just a few buzzing fluorescents humming above the pumps. I killed the engine, stepped down onto cracked pavement, and started fueling up. The nozzle rattled, the pump clicking in rhythm. It was quiet. Too quiet. No chatter from other drivers. No music drifting from the diner. Just my rig, the pump, and the low whine of a neon sign flickering over the storefront. I went through my usual motions, checked the tires with the iron bar, jotted down mileage, poured myself coffee from the thermos. Routine, predictable, grounding. And then I heard it. A voice cutting through the stillness. "Hey, driver." I turned. A man was walking toward me from the far side of the lot. Jeans, work boots, a jacket with grease stains on the sleeves. He looked the part, said his truck had broken down a few miles back, said he just needed a lift to the next town. At first, it sounded like the kind of request every trucker hears eventually. But then he smiled, and that's when the hair on my arm stood straight up. Because I'd seen his face before, not on the road, not at a truck stop, on the news. I froze. My mind ran through the memory, trying to place him. And then it hit me. Months earlier, I'd watched a news report about a crew that hijacked freight loads across the Southwest. The man in front of me, he was one of them. I was sure of it. I tightened my grip on the fuel handle, trying to play it calm. But he kept talking. "Long night, huh? Where are you headed? Dallas? Memphis?" He listed off routes like he knew them all. Then he smiled again and said my company's name. Said he'd heard we mostly hauled electronics, flat screens, laptops, high-value freight. My stomach dropped. This wasn't small talk. This man knew my run, knew my cargo, knew me. I told him I couldn't give rides. Company policy. Tried to shut it down quick, but his face hardened. "Come on, man. Don't make this difficult." He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the cigarette smoke on his jacket. His hand brushed the passenger side door handle. He pulled on it. Locked. That's when I noticed movement in the lot. 2 more men had stepped out of the shadows, pacing, slow, casual. But their eyes were fixed on me. One leaned against a pickup parked at the edge of the lot. The other just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. The lot felt smaller with each second. My truck no longer felt like a shield. It felt like a cage. And all I could think was, I wasn't supposed to be alone here. But I was. My pulse hammered as I climbed back into the cab, slamming the lockdown with my fist. The man yanked at the handle again, his face lit in the glow of my running lights. Behind him, the other 2 men spread out, closing the distance with slow, deliberate steps. I twisted the key. The engine roared awake, shaking the cab, rattling the mirrors. The first man pounded on the door, shouting something I couldn't hear over the engine. I shoved the rig into gear. My hands were slick with sweat. The steering wheel cold against my grip. I swung the truck toward the exit, tires spitting gravel. For a moment, I thought I was clear. But then I saw it. A dark sedan idling just beyond the pumps. Parked at an angle, cutting across the only exit ramp. Its headlights were off. The 2 men from the lot were closing in now. The hitchhiker was still on my step, one hand clawing at the mirror as the whole cab shook. I had seconds, maybe less. The sedan blocked the way forward. The men closed in behind. There was no middle ground. Either I stopped, or I hit the gas and pushed through. I gritted my teeth, heart pounding so loud it drowned out the roar of the diesel. Hands locked on the wheel. Foot pressing harder against the pedal. And in that split second, I made my choice. Sometimes, stopping is the deadliest mistake.